What is going on, everybody? My name is Andrew Quinn. I am going to be running solo tonight on episode 5 of the Home Run Hitters podcast. My co-host Chuck was unable to make it tonight, so you're going to be hearing some news and updates from around opening weekend from me. Going to be a little bit more of a shorter show today, hoping to get you guys out of here in about 35 minutes. Just a couple reminders about the Home Run Hitters podcast. We are sponsored by Underdog Fantasy and Sports Time HQ. You can follow Sports Time HQ on Twitter at Sports Time HQ. And again, Underdog Fantasy, if you use the promo code Underdog when you are signing up, they will give you an instant deposit match bonus of up to $100 for first-time depositors. So enough with all of the fancy business. Let's get right on into opening weekend. So baseball is back. It was obviously a ton of fun getting to take in some baseball games again this weekend. We saw some exciting action from around the league. For me, my Cardinals got off to a hot start, going 2-1 this weekend. We dropped a tough one against the Pirates today. And I'm repping a Braves World Series champion shirt today. The Braves are off to a good start. Matt Olson is currently tied for the National League lead in hits. So he's looking to come right into a role that Freddie Freeman left open at first base, and he's making a positive impact. The Braves looking at 2-2 right now. But the big story coming out of the Braves division in the NL East to start the season is kind of this new look New York Mets team. The Mets are 3-1 right now. They've scored 19 runs and only allowed 8, so they have a plus 11 run differential, which is among one of the best in baseball. And the big thing for me has been seeing the resurgence of Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor was a guy that Chuck and I the past couple of weeks have been telling you guys to take a look at in drafts. A great value in the 4th, even the 5th round if he was available then for fantasy. And he hit his first home run of the season today. He's been hitting the ball well. He's been seeing the ball well. He's going to be a big part of the Mets being successful this year. There was a little bit of a scare for the Mets earlier this weekend on Saturday night, I believe. That we saw Pete Alonso get hit kind of up around the jaw with a fastball towards the 4th or 5th inning of the game. And then Francisco Lindor, he comes up to bat a couple batters later and squares around to bunt, and he gets hit in the face as well. The bench is cleared in the Mets Nationals game. We saw Buck Showalter being, pretty fired up, which was cool to see for him taking some time off before coming back into baseball to manage again. But he's defending his guys, and the Mets seem to rally around that in that game. And like I said, they're off to a hot start. They're looking competitive. And in the NL East, especially with the firepower that the Phillies are going to bring, the Braves obviously looking to repeat as World Series champions again this year. The Mets are looking like they are going to be a team to beat as well. And their pitching's been solid too. They've had a high strikeout rate so far this year. Their starting pitchers have been working deep into ball games the first few games of the season. And so that's something that they're going to need. And it's only going to get better with hopefully a healthy Jacob deGrom returning to the Mets rotation in the next couple of weeks. Some other big standouts from opening weekend, the Yankees, they had a great offensive showing this weekend with Giancarlo Stanton and Anthony Rizzo, both hitting home runs on opening day. And then on day 2 of the season, they became, I believe, the 9th set of Yankees teammates to accomplish 2 home runs on the first 2 days of the season since 1909. So they're joining some illustrious company there. The Yankees and Red Sox did have one game get postponed, but the Yankees did win in both of the games that they played. 10 runs scored, 7 runs allowed, a run differential of +3. It's winning baseball, and that's what's important. You're going to hear me highlight with a couple other teams the run differentials. And for me, that's an important statistic when looking at how successful a team is going to be over the long run of the season. And obviously, it's 162 games. We're 3 games, 4 games into the season for some teams, only 2 games into the season for a couple of teams. There's a lot that needs to play out still. But run differential can be an early way to determine, hey, my team is 2-1, but our run differential is -11. That's what the Kansas City Royals situation is right now. They've won 2 of their games, but allowing 18 runs and only scoring 7 runs in the 3 games they've played so far is not a long-term sustainable look. But there have been some exciting flashes. Nicky Lopez, Bobby Witt Jr., both looking really exciting. Bobby Witt Jr. might have had one of the better defensive plays of the opening weekend with a great off-balance throw to home plate to nag a runner coming home late in the ball game the other night for the Royals. So, again, the Yankees, they're 2-0. Their run differential is +3. But what's nice for them is they get a long opening home stretch this season. It's going to play well for their power numbers. It's going to play well for their offense. It might not be the greatest thing for their pitching. We did see Garrett Cole struggle a little bit in his start, giving up a deep home run to Rafael Devers. But the Yankees are a team that the biggest question for them is health. And at this point in the season, with everybody healthy, they have looked strong, and offensively, they're a scary team at this point. Obviously, just looking around the standings right now, in the AL East, the Rays are currently atop. They won all 3 of their games this weekend against Baltimore. The Yankees are 2-0, and the Blue Jays are 2-1. In the Central, the White Sox and the Royals, like I mentioned, are both 2-1 right now. And a little bit of a surprise after their hot start on opening weekend, or opening day, I should say, is the Detroit Tigers falling down to 1-2. Their run differential is also -11. So you can see the Royals with a -11 run differential at 2-1, and the Tigers with the -11 run differential at 1-2. Obviously, Javi Baez was the hero for them on opening day. He had a big walk-off hit that it originally was ruled an out, but upon further review, the ball actually hit the wall before it hit A.J. Pollock's glove in right field against the White Sox. And so Baez hit a walk-off double. But the biggest question mark for Detroit right now, we know that they have an exciting offense. It might not be the most consistent offense in baseball when you have guys like Javi Baez who have a ton of pop at the plate, but also strike out a lot. Miguel Cabrera certainly is in the decline of his career. He's not really even going to be playing every day for them. Spencer Torkelson is an exciting prospect, but he's likely to struggle against big league pitching, at least towards the beginning part of the season. So there are some holes in that offense, but the pitching for them is what's going to really make it interesting. And they have some exciting young pitchers like Casey Mize that are coming out of their farm system. But the bullpen's been a problem for the Tigers the past few seasons, and we saw some more remnants of that dropping the last 2 games that they've played against the White Sox at home. Moving on in the AL West, the Astros have rolled very early on at 3-1. They picked up those wins against the Angels, who have been a little bit of a disappointment out of the gate at 1-3 with a -10 run differential. That's the worst in their division. And there are big expectations for the Angels. There's Mike Trout being healthy, Shohei Ohtani looking to repeat what he did last season, Anthony Rendon kind of looking to get back to where he was at as a player in Washington. Joe Adell, even an exciting young prospect who really, really struggled on opening day. He went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. He made a really bad throw back in from left field on a play at the plate. Adell is a guy that there are high expectations for, and he was benched the day after opening day. So hopefully with him, he'll bounce back quickly. He should still have a ton of confidence in himself, and one bad day at the plate. I mean, if you've been playing baseball as long as any of the guys that are in the big leagues, you've had plenty of bad days at the plate before. But Joe Adell definitely needs to get some confidence so that he can help contribute, because the Angels are going to need everybody at this point. They're going to be fighting an uphill battle from here on out to start the season after starting 1-3. All right, let's shift over to the National League. So like we talked about in the East, the Mets are 3-1 right now, looking great out of the gate. The Phillies and Braves each have 2 wins. The Phillies at 2-1, the Braves at 2-2. I've already talked about the Mets. I think that the Phillies are looking very dangerous offensively. We saw Kyle Schwarber go deep in his first at-bat in a Phillies uniform. We know what Bryce Harper is capable of offensively. Nick Castellanos hit a home run, I believe, on day 2 in a Phillies uniform. This is an offense that has the ability to hit the ball out pretty much with anybody in their lineup. And if you have any of those pieces in fantasy, it's going to be a good good lineup for you to be playing around with. I've even gone so far, and I'll get into you know what, I'll tease this guy for the end to keep you guys hanging on. But there is one player on the Phillies who I've been picking up. I was picking him up late in drafts last week, and I've been picking him up everywhere I can on the waiver wire because he is going to be getting consistent playing time, and you want guys in this offense that are going to score runs. All right, moving down to the Central. The big surprise is that the Cubs start off 2-1 this season. They took 2 out of 3 at home this an opening weekend against the Brewers, who, you know, a lot of people had high expectations for, myself included. You know, they're still probably the team to beat in the NL Central. But the biggest storyline for the Brewers, just to kind of highlight how their opening weekend went. So we saw Corbin Burnes set a record last season with, I want to say he had 54 strikeouts before allowing his first walk last season. And then on opening day, the first batter that he faces, he walks. So, you know, Corbin Burnes is a guy who we're not expecting to be putting a lot of guys on base with free passes, but just kind of highlights some of the early struggles that the Brewers are having this season. They've allowed 18 runs and only scored 9 in 3 games to the Cubs. And, you know, I'll give the Cubs credit, even as a Cardinals fan. The Cubs have some exciting young players that they're going to be featuring. They had some guys get off to hot starts. Ian Happ is batting over 700 right now to start the season. They're going to be a team that's going to have a good combination of veteran guys and young rookies that's going to put them in a position where, you know, are they going to compete for the entire season in the Central? I don't think that they will, but they're a team that can certainly play spoiler to a team like the Cardinals or to, you know, some of these other teams in the National League like the Phillies or the Braves or the Mets that might all be fighting it out for wild card spots down the stretch. I think the Cubs are going to be a team that no one's going to want to play, you know, when the games are really, really starting to count towards the dog days of summer, so to speak. Let's highlight some individual players that have really stood out to open the season from a fantasy perspective. I'm going to start with, in my opinion, the guy who was the most impressive starting pitcher that pitched this weekend, and that's Carlos Rodon on the San Francisco Giants. Rodon's a guy who we saw last year get kind of designated for assignment and released from the White Sox. And the Giants took a chance on him because they liked what they saw. And Rodon looked filthy. He looked filthy when he pitched this weekend. I believe he had 12 strikeouts in 5 innings. He was one of, I think, less than 50 pitchers since the 1900s to record 12 or more strikeouts in under 90 pitches in a start. So he was extremely effective with those high strikeout numbers, which typically you tend to see guys that strike out a lot of guys have high pitch counts because they're working deep counts. Rodon was just attacking all day, but his stuff looks really, really good. He's going to be a huge addition to the Giants being, you know, potentially a dangerous team out of the National League West this year. Along with Rodon, Byron Buxton had himself a great opening weekend. He's currently leading baseball with 3 home runs. And one of the home runs that he hit earlier today, he hit on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, just about like shoulder high, right about up here. And he pulled it out to left field. It was one of the more impressive swings that I've seen in a long time, being able to barrel up a pitch that fast, that high. It's extremely challenging to do for even the best big league hitters. But Buxton looked great in spring training. The biggest question for him is, can he stay healthy? That's been the biggest concern throughout the course of his young career up to this point. If he's healthy, he's a guy that's going to be an extremely great value for those of you who have drafted him in fantasy drafts so far. I talked about him earlier, but Matt Olson is leading, or tied for the lead, in hits in the National League. He's gotten off to a good start so far in Atlanta. Nolan Arenado on the Cardinals, he has driven in runs every single game so far this season. He's hit home runs on opening day as well as today. He's looking like he is going to be, again, carrying some heavy weight in the Cardinals offense. And along with him, Tyler O'Neill had 5 RBIs on opening day. So there are going to be some guys in the Cardinals lineup that are going to be very exciting for us to watch. I've got a comment here. Fernando saying that Rodon is on fire. Yeah, so Fernando must have watched Rodon pitch earlier today. He was obviously looking good in his start, and he's somebody that, again, he was going pretty late in fantasy drafts, so if you're able to snag him, he was a great value as well. Last kind of big thing to highlight here. So Arizona Diamondbacks, you guys, if you're fan base or if you're a fan of the Arizona Diamondbacks, you're kind of in some dark days right now. But they did get some excitement on not opening night, but on I believe on Friday or Saturday. Seth Beer, it was National Beer Day, and Seth Beer hit a walk-off 3-run home run for the Diamondbacks, kind of in an homage to his namesake. So, Seth Beer, congrats to you, man. Very exciting, and hopefully that's the first of many walk-off hits for you in a D-backs uniform. One last kind of loser, not a team that I'm worried about, but just worth mentioning because they are a World Series favorite for many. The Dodgers. They are 1-2 to start the season. They dropped 2 out of 3 games in Colorado to the Rockies, who newly sported Chris Bryant. So Chris Bryant obviously leading his team to 2 wins in 3 games against a World Series favorite in Los Angeles. Not worried about the Dodgers, but just worth mentioning that they are off to a 1-2 start this season. Fernando saying, what are the odds that it's Seth Beer who hits the walk-off? I got Albert here saying Alex Bregman bounce back season with a fire emoji. Albert, I think that Bregman's in a great spot to have a bounce back year. The one thing that'll be interesting to see early on is the Astros are looking to kind of hold back on his plate appearances in his games early in the season because he is coming off of a wrist injury from last year. But he's a guy that obviously is going to, as he goes, the Astros are going to go. And with guys like him and Chris or Kyle Tucker and Jose Altuve, it's going to be an exciting offense. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Bregman's certainly a guy that could be a bounce back candidate. And hey, who knows? He might even be a sneaky MVP candidate down the stretch once he starts playing consistently and getting 100% healthy. All right, so let's take a quick break here from the baseball action. Let me talk to you guys about Underdog real quick. So Underdog Fantasy is a sponsor of our presenter for the Home Run Hitters podcast, and our presenter, again, is Sports Time HQ. You can follow them on Twitter, subscribe to their channel on YouTube, like them on Facebook, the whole 9 yards. Underdog Fantasy, though, it's an online website or an app that you can download onto your smartphone devices that allows you to place wagers on some of your favorite games, some of your favorite teams, and some of your favorite players. Whether you're an NBA fan, an MLB fan, an NHL fan, or a football fan, there are always player props that you can choose to double up, triple up, or even potentially 20x your money. They've also got best ball leagues that are going on right now for fantasy football. If you use the promo code SportsTimeHQ, you'll receive an instant deposit match bonus of up to $100. So if you deposit $100 on Underdog, use SportsTimeHQ as the promo code, you'll get a $100 instant deposit match. So you'll have $200 to play around with. When Chuck gets back, we'll be talking about some Underdog segments that we are going to be throwing some bones on. So hopefully you guys are along for the ride with us as we go. I see Fernando is in the background here toying around with some stuff, so I'll give him a second to get everything set up. All right, looks like we are ready to roll. All right, guys, so I'm going to transition a little bit here. We've already been talking about oh, you know what? Whoops, I'm on the wrong page here. Hold up. Technical difficulties once again. Chuck's not here, but I'm still having them. Let me see. Here we go. Chrome tab. There we go. All right. So right here, I've got the draft results pulled up from Fantrax. This was our dynasty draft that Chuck and I were in, along with some other people in the Sports Time HQ universe. And we finished this up a couple days ago. And so as you can see here, I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom. It was a 30-round draft. So I'm going to just go team by team and talk about some of the guys that had the some good picks, some good values. It's pulling my team up first, so I'm going to start here. I got Fernando Tatis Jr. at the 109. I was extremely happy that he was available at that pick. And like I said, with him not being available for the first couple of months of the season, that kind of impacted my draft going into the rest of this thing. And I'll just be honest with you guys, my team's probably not going to be a contender this season. My week one scoring's not off to a great start, but that's not the goal. The goal for me is to have a long-term sustainable machine with some really exciting young talent. So Fernando Tatis Jr. and then Mookie Betts at the 204, 16th off the board. Austin Riley and Francisco Lindor, who I was really excited about scooping up. I've got Freddie Peralta, Eloy Jimenez, and Adley Rutschman. Adley being my franchise catcher. Hopefully we see him soon. And then as you can see, as we're kind of scrolling down here, a couple of values that I'm going to highlight. Jack Flaherty in the 13th round to me was a steal. Not just because I'm a Cardinals fan, but, I think that Flaherty fell just because of his injury worries. He's still extremely young. He's dominant. He's a great pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's healthy. So I was extremely happy to get him. And then a round later, getting another top catching prospect who's already in the big leagues and was making an impact playing in opening day is Keibert Ruiz from the Nationals. And then I was able to get a couple of good Detroit pitchers, Tariq Skubal, who had a good season last year, but really was having a strong spring, and I'm expecting big things from him. And then Casey Mize, who's one of the top pitching prospects out of the Tigers franchise. And then as we scroll down here a little bit more, I was able to get Dustin May in the 19th round at 225th overall. May's going to be missing some time this season after having Tommy John surgery, but he's an exciting pitcher. He throws in the high 90s up to the low 100s with just tremendous break on his pitches, including a really nasty sinker. And then down here towards the end, Kumar Rocker was available in our draft, even though technically he has yet to sign with any team. I think the plan for him is to go back into the draft pool for 2022. But he's a guy that if he's eligible, I'm just going to hold on to him because he's a guy that, injury concerns set aside, we know what he's capable of after seeing him pitch at Vanderbilt alongside Jack Leader. And I'm really excited to have him on a dynasty team, even though he's not even playing anywhere yet. And then down here towards the bottom, my last two good values, relief pitcher eligible Dinelson Lamet with the Padres. He's a guy that could even compete for a spot in the starting rotation this year. And then Brusdar Graterol, who's one of my favorite pitchers in baseball with the Dodgers because he throws like 102 miles an hour and like barely even uses his legs. Like just watching him throw, it looks like it's effortless, but he also gets like 18 inches of run on his fastball. So it's pretty ridiculous. All right, moving over here to Bowdridge. Bowdridge took Freddie Freeman at the 108, which Chuck and I kind of discussed is probably a little bit of a reach just given the age, and it is exciting to see him on the Dodgers. But Freeman at the 108 to kind of be his cornerstone piece, and then getting some pretty good values as the draft went on, but drafting a lot of old guys early. Machado, again, not exactly someone you think of as old, but he's definitely towards the back end of his prime years. Aaron Judge, who, a big story in baseball, Aaron Judge turning down a big contract extension with the Yankees. We'll have to see what that means for him. Is he going to be a guy that gets dealt this year? Is he going to just be, the main guy in this free agent class that we're projecting out already? But Aaron Judge probably takes a hit in dynasty too, just because he's potentially not going to be a Yankee for long term. We know he's powerful, but not playing in Yankee Stadium is certainly going to affect his offensive production. Some other picks, Christian Yelich at 80th overall. If Yelich bounces back, I think that's a good pick, but there's still a lot that we need to see from him. And then Bowdridge did wait on his pitching here. He takes his first starting pitcher off the board at Sean Manaea and then double taps with Yu Darvish for a couple of Padres pitchers. Manaea is a guy who's probably going to be in the rotation for the Padres. And Darvish is a great pitcher, but he's getting up there in age too. I think that there were some better pitchers on the board at that spot. I was able to get Jack Flaherty after, his three pitchers went off the board. I do like taking Giovanni Gallegos at 161 overall. He's a great closer, and he's someone that's probably going to stay with the Cardinals for the next couple of years. Adam Wainwright at 200. I mean, this is Adam Wainwright's last season. He had a great start on opening day, but I think that's a guy that you probably don't need to take till late in the draft. I mean, I took Yadier Molina with my last pick just because I like him so much, and I kind of needed another consistent starter at catcher. But I wasn't going to take Yadi if any earlier than the very last round. So, Bowdridge is it looks like opting for more of a win now approach, taking some older players, but hopefully he's in a competitive spot for this year. I do also like this Luke Voit pick at 257 overall. Moving over to Chris T8 over here on the left. Really like the Frankie Montas pick at 124. He opened the season as the ace for Oakland, and he's probably a guy that could even get moved as the season goes on. He's still young. He's still got a lot of career ahead of him, but he's an exciting pitcher, and getting ace opportunities should hopefully bode well for his career as well. As we scroll down here again, a mix of old kind of win now players for Chris. He did take Shohei Ohtani at the 104 to open the draft up. He did get Ozzie Albies and Matt Olson, two Braves players who, maybe they went a little bit early as well. But, as we're going down here, I do like the Kikuchi pick for Toronto. He's exciting. Dylan Bundy is still a pitcher that could have some life left in him in Minnesota. And then a prospect in Cole Irvin with Oakland as well. Let's look at Chuck's team. So Chuck, we talked about the first few rounds of Chuck's team, so I'll kind of get into the later rounds. Julio Rodriguez, rookie for the Mariners, one of the top prospects in baseball. He gets him at 115th overall. I really like that pick. And then Logan Gilbert, another exciting pitcher with the Mariners. So Chuck getting two Mariners studs that hopefully are going to be studs for a while. He had Anthony Rizzo slip to him at 163. Rizzo's off to a hot start this season. I like the value in that pick. We talked about him earlier, but Joe Adell's an exciting prospect. I think that long-term he's going to be just fine, even if, he's one of the hot drop candidates right now in redraft leagues. But getting him at 198th is really good value as well. And then as we scroll down here, I think Chuck might have unfortunately gotten stuck with a couple of auto draft picks as we get to the end, because I'm surprised to see a couple of these guys on his roster. But I do like the value of Frank Schwindel, who's going to be playing a lot and has some power potential for the Cubs all the way down at 270, as well as O'Neal Cruz, who's an exciting prospect out of Pittsburgh. So Chuck with some good value, and it looks like that he's trying to take more of a long-term approach, as well as myself. Looking at Dimitri over here, Dimitri 1213 took Vladdy at the 111, and then we were kind of talking about his team last week with Xander Bogaerts at the 212, maybe a homer pick if he's a Red Sox fan, and then Salvador Perez, who's an aging asset at catcher. He's been off to a slow start this opening weekend, but taking him at third overall. Looking at some of the later picks that he has, Mike Clevenger's a good value at 192 overall. Ian Happ, like we talked about, is off to a hot start. He's going to be playing a lot for the Cubs, primarily against right-handed pitching, but he will be getting a lot of at-bats for them this year. Steven Strasburg, all the way at 289. He's a guy that's starting off with some injury concerns this season, but we all know what he's capable of when he's healthy. Corey Kluber in that same boat with Tampa Bay. Maybe he'll have a late career resurgence in Tampa Bay. But again, Dimitri taking a lot of older players that, hopefully it puts him in a position to win right off the bat. But long-term, he's going to be in a tough spot probably in a couple of years down the road. Emmanuel Flores getting some good value with Giancarlo Stanton in the fourth round. Chris Bryant might be a little bit of a reach, but he's got a strong outfield core with Trout, Harper, and Giancarlo Stanton. Two older pitchers at the top of his rotation, and Justin Verlander and Clayton Kershaw, but hopefully they'll produce for him this year. As we're scrolling down, the Sonny Gray pick is good value. He's older as well, but he should have a strong season with Minnesota this year. He didn't have a great first start, but he did serviceable over 4+ innings of work. Taking a shot on Bobby Dahlbeck, who, Chuck and I have talked about a little bit, is probably not the long-term answer at first base for the Red Sox. But he is a young prospect who does have some power potential, so we'll see. Again, Emmanuel's team looks solid, just at first glance. I think that there's definitely some strong spots where he could be a competitive team this year. And there's a couple of young guys that are scattered throughout here, but I don't think that again, a lot of these guys are probably going to be hitting chucking me up for trades down the road because we're kind of hoarding a lot of young talent so far here. One other guy that I want to kind of shout out here is Eric's team. Eric taking a shot on Bobby Witt Jr. at the 402, and Bobby Witt Jr. is off to a pretty strong start in Kansas City. Obviously an exciting prospect in baseball, but he is looking strong, not just from an offensive standpoint, but defensively as well. Swings for the upside with a couple of these picks here in the middle rounds. Alex Verdugo in Boston, Shane Baz with the Rays, Dylan Carlson with the Cardinals, who had a strong opening weekend. He takes Akil Baddoo here at the 206 or 206th overall in the 18th round. He gets Tristan Casas with the Red Sox. He gets Nate Pearson, who is an exciting first base prospect. He gets Kyle Lewis, who is still young, has a lot of career ahead of him, and an exciting outfielder. So Eric's team is looking like it's going to be competitive for a few years to come as well. And then Jameson over here to kind of wrap things up. Jameson taking Jose Ramirez, Walker Buehler with his first couple picks. The Marcus Semien pick is interesting to me with his age, but he has been kind of a late breakout candidate the past couple of years, a late career breakout guy. Javier Baez, good value at 66th overall. Paul Goldschmidt with, pretty good value in a dynasty draft at 79th overall, but he's 34. He's probably only got 1 or 2 solid years left ahead of him here. And then as we're scrolling down, taking a shot on Michael Conforto, who's still a free agent. We'll see where he lands. Harrison Bader's a decent value. He's a great defender and he's fast, but he's still a little bit inconsistent offensively. And then Nick Madrigal, who's a young second baseman for the Cubs, who's an exciting prospect as well. Let's look at Fernando's team. So Fernando, I won't even get into the Trevor Story stuff. He is putting it right here. Story is the best pick. I don't know about that. Let's just leave it there. I don't know if Trevor Story is the best pick, but I'll tip my cap. Fernando did have some good picks down the stretch. I love this Ke'Bryan Hayes pick at 170 overall. He is an excellent defensive third baseman, and he had a pretty good opening series with the Cardinals. He did have a little wrist injury pop up after opening day, but hopefully he's going to be okay. Kevin Biggio is a good value at the 218th overall. Hunter Green, a great value at 239th overall. He had his big league debut today and picked up a win in his first start. Green features a triple digits fastball, and he's going to be a staple in Cincinnati for years to come. So there is some hope, Reds fans, beyond just this year. Chris Paddock at 290, who got traded to the Twins a couple days after our draft ended. Chris Paddock, a new member of the Minnesota Twins franchise. And he did take some shots at the Padres, saying that he felt like he kind of looked like a UPS delivery man. So hopefully he looks better in the Twins uniforms this year. And then, Jarren Duran again is an exciting prospect with the Red Sox that Chuck and I have talked about. So Fernando taking some good picks after the Trevor Story pick early on, which, I don't hate Trevor Story, but Fernando, you could have gotten him probably 2 rounds later than that. So once again, here's the first couple rounds of the big board. And it was a lot of fun doing this draft. Hopefully it's something that we can all keep tabs on for the next couple of seasons and keep this thing active too. All right. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for me today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope that you got to enjoy some opening day weekend recaps, learned a little bit about some of the standings in the team. I'm going to hit you with a couple of waiver targets before we get out of here. Early season waiver targets are kind of hard to predict, but just a couple of reminders for you guys that are newer to fantasy baseball. If you want to get an early edge in some of these leagues, you're going to want to try to stash players. And that kind of brings up this comment here. Fernando asked, should dynasty leagues have minor league slots to hold prospects? I don't think it's a bad idea. In fantasy football and dynasty leagues, you see taxi slots that some people have to hold on to, like rookies that aren't going to be playing a lot over the course of the season, but you still want to hold on to them so they don't take up a spot on your bench. In Dynasty Baseball, it's not a bad idea to have a few taxi squad spots, but I think at the end of the day, you want to just have deeper benches in dynasty leagues in general, whether that's football, whether that's baseball, or whether that's another fantasy sport. So the Fantrax league that we're in, again, it's 30 players per team, and in a 12-man league, there's a handful of players that are still available on the free agent pool. But I think that having 30 players or even 35 players is a good starting point, and you can always add bench spots in dynasty as the years go on. Because like I said, if you're doing dynasty, you're hoping that that's something you're going to be doing for the long term with a lot of people. So back to waivers to add right now for fantasy baseball. So one of the big things to get an edge, especially early in the season, is streaming probable starters. If you go on to like your Yahoo transactions page or your ESPN transactions page, you can filter by probable pitchers. And that's just going to show you the guys who are starting that day or the next day for different teams. And that's a great way to take advantages from different matchups. Just early on in the season, we've seen some of these offenses struggle out of the gates. The Cardinals pitching was pretty effective against the Pirates, although today Steven Matz in his first start with the Cardinals kind of fell apart in the third inning. But being able to take advantage of a team that's playing like the Oakland A's or the Nationals, even though they do have Juan Soto, who's a dangerous hitter, the Rockies playing away from Colorado. There are certain teams, the Orioles too. There are teams where if you have, a fourth or fifth starter that's available in your free agent pool, and that he's probably going to give you 5 solid innings, and he could get you 10 points that could really, really make a difference in your points scoring that week. Or if you're in a head-to-head league where you're, getting points on which team hits the most home runs or which team has the lowest ERA or which team's pitchers have the most strikeouts, that's just a way to get extra points and get an extra edge up on some of those managers who might not be as active as you on the waiver wire. So picking up probable starters and just looking at them day by day is a great strategy. Couple of individual players that kind of stood out during opening weekend that I think are great ads, and they're available in a lot of places. I highlighted some deeper guys that are available in like 10% or less of leagues on Yahoo, or they're owned in 10% or less of leagues on Yahoo, I should say. I'm sorry. So they're available in over 90% of leagues. Jurickson Profar with the Padres. This is a guy that was a very, very highly touted prospect a few years back when he was coming up with the Rangers organization. And we've seen him kind of bounce around to a couple different franchises. But Profar is a guy who's going to get a lot of consistent opportunity until Fernando Tatis Jr. is back in the lineup and healthy for the Padres. We did see Profar hit a grand slam today. He's going to be somebody that is going to bat towards the bottom of the lineup. But again, you want players in good situations and in good offenses. And the Padres certainly still have a good offense, even without Fernando Tatis Jr. in the lineup every day. So Jurickson Profar is a guy that's a good pick. He's eligible at a ton of different positions. I think in most leagues, he's at least middle infield eligible and outfield eligible. You might even be able to get him at third base or even first base in a couple of spots. But he's a guy that if you need a spot starter, you need a guy to throw in. He's got pop. He's a switch hitter, so he's always getting good hitting matchups. He is a candidate to steal a couple of bases. So I think Jurickson Profar is a pretty sneaky waiver wire ad right off the stretch. And like I said, until Fernando Tatis Jr. gets healthy. Another guy that's a deeper stash is Yoshi Tsutsugo from the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's a left-handed hitter. He's first base and outfield eligible. So again, these dual eligible guys that are getting lots of opportunities early on are only going to allow you to be more flexible when you're tinkering with your lineups. But he's looked pretty solid at the plate. He's got a clean swing. He puts the ball in play, which is going to lead to hits for him throughout the course of the year. But Tsutsugo is a guy who maybe you don't start right away, but especially if you're in a deeper league and you just need guys on your bench that you can throw in when a game gets postponed, or you can throw in when a guy has an off day. Tsutsugo is a great candidate that can fill a couple different spots for you. And then I teased him earlier. There's a player on the Phillies, a young player. He made his debut last season with the team, but because of an injury, he's getting an opportunity to start every day for them in center field. And this is a player that I actually used to train back in St. Louis when I was working with the St. Louis Gamers organization, and that's Matt Vierling. Matt is 24. He is opening as the everyday center fielder for the Phillies. He's batting in the 9 hole, again, with the DH in the National League. But Matt's a guy who is fast. He flashed his speed with stolen bases a few times last season. He is, again, batting in that 9 spot as kind of a secondary leadoff position. And we talked about how dangerous the Phillies offense is. Whenever he gets on base, he's only 1 or 2 batters away from being driven in. So that's exciting for his potential to score runs and score fantasy points for you. And he's a great athlete. Matt was a pitcher in high school when I was training him. I did a power arm program where I was leading that program, and Matt was one of the kids that trained with me. And Matt was a pitcher that at 16 was throwing in the mid to upper 80s. He played at college at Notre Dame. He was a shortstop and outfielder when he got to Notre Dame, and then obviously got drafted by the Phillies and has excelled as an outfielder in their organization. He's a guy that, because of injuries, is getting a spot early on, and if he can hang on to it and continue doing the right things and helping the team win, there's no reason why he can't be their long-term answer in center field, at least for the 2022 season, and then potentially beyond, who knows. But Matt Vierling is a guy who is probably owned in every fantasy baseball league that you're in. I snagged him towards the end of our Fantrax Dynasty Startup Draft. Go pick up Matt Vierling, center fielder from the Philadelphia Phillies, whenever you get a chance. And then the last thing off the waiver wire, if you're a fan of a team and you're watching their games consistently, go out and pick up some quality, kind of under the radar bullpen arms that they have, guys that are going to be in consistent roles. Because if you can have a slot where a guy's going to pitch, every other day, and he's going to get an inning and he's going to strike out a batter, but he's not going to really get hurt too much out of the bullpen, those are the guys that are going to be consistent point getters for you and help you score points, but also bring down your ERA, bring down your WHIP if you're in one of those head-to-head leagues each week. So my deep stash for this week, again, I'm taking a Cardinals guy because Cardinals baseball is the biggest form of baseball that I watch. Ryan Pressly, who pitched in 2 out of 3 games during opening weekend for the Cardinals, he features a triple digits fastball. He's got a really good slider that he actually retooled this offseason that was extremely effective. So Ryan Pressly is a guy, he's not going to get save opportunities necessarily with Giovanni Gallegos, but Presley's a guy who could work out of the bullpen and appear in, 70, 80 games this year for the Cardinals. So he's a guy that I'm picking up where I can if I need 1 or 2 more, consistent relief arms to build around my starting pitchers. So there are your waiver ads for the week. That's all I've got for you guys. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been the Home Run Hitters podcast presented by Sports Time HQ as well as Underdog Fantasy. Again, I'm Andrew Quinn. You can follow me on Twitter below right here at AQuinnFF. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. I will see you guys next Sunday. Peace.